Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're cracking open a massive, incredibly complex case file. We're looking at one of the most staggering corporate ascensions in modern history, the rapid, seemingly unstoppable expansion of the Adani Group across India. The sheer scale of these acquisitions has ignited intense global controversy, and we're going to unpack exactly how it all happened.
So what are we actually looking at here? At the heart of This Explainer is a profound mystery with two fiercely opposing narratives. On one hand, observers look at the data and see a brilliant, aggressive corporate strategy, right? A total triumph for the free market. But on the other side, critics are connecting a very different set of dots. They're alleging a grand design of crony capitalism, where state machinery is literally being weaponized to eliminate competition. We're going to look strictly at the facts, the timelines, and the numbers.
Okay, let's dive into this. To really understand the stakes, you have to understand the scale. Even after a massive market sell-off, which was triggered by those explosive allegations from a US-based short-selling firm, the gross value of the Adani family's listed entities stood at a staggering $69 billion. This isn't just a company. It's a sprawling empire spanning ports, airports, power plants, and urban redevelopment. But the big question researchers are asking is, exactly how was this empire built so quickly?
Section 1. The Raid to Ownership Chronology, Tracing the Pattern. To figure out how this empire was built, we have to act a bit like financial detectives. We need to examine a specific sequence of events documented by independent researchers that political opposition and media outlets have dubbed the Raid to Ownership Chronology.
Mapping out the events, critics point to a highly unusual, recurring pattern where central regulatory and law enforcement agencies suddenly scrutinize companies right before Adani acquires their assets. Think about it. In 2018 and 2019, the Navayuga Group faced massive income tax raids. By early 2020, they sold a controlling stake in the strategic Krishnapatnam port to Adani. In mid-2020, the GVK Group was resisting the sale of the highly lucrative Mumbai airport. Suddenly, the CBI and Enforcement Directorate launch raids alleging financial irregularities. By August, a debt-laden GVK agrees to sell its entire stake to Adani. And when Vedanta lost its legal challenge against Adani's bid for Jayaprakash Associates during insolvency, just a month later, the Enforcement Directorate raided Vedanta's premises.
Is this just a wild coincidence or calculated design? Critics argue this timeline proves the state is acting as an enforcer, creating distressed assets for Adani to sweep up. But we absolutely must look at the other side of the ledger. The investigating agencies and the Adani Group categorically deny this. They maintain that targets like GVK were investigated for entirely legitimate, pre-existing financial violations and that every single Adani acquisition followed strict, legal market mechanisms, transparent bidding, and insolvency codes.
Section 2. Bypassing the Law Act, the ground reality. You know, the boardroom takeovers are really only half the story. If we want to understand the full anatomy of this expansion, we have to transition from high-level corporate buyouts to the ground reality. What actually happens when these massive infrastructure projects hit the local soil?
Now, in India, land acquisition is governed by the Lair Act of 2013. Its entire purpose is to ensure a humane, transparent process. It requires consent from local landowners, especially indigenous communities, and it guarantees fair compensation and rehabilitation when their land is taken for industrialization.
But here's where things get complicated. Across multiple states and projects, independent fact-finders and conflict watchers have mapped out a systemic pattern of grievances. In Gajah, Jharkhand, indigenous Adivasi land was acquired for a thermal plant amid claims of police brutality. In Mumbai, the Dharavi revamp has sparked massive protests over eviction fears. In Pench, locals allege the company literally walled off a public, government-built road. And over in Navi Mumbai, the Bombay High Court actually ruled that the government unlawfully invoked a special urgency clause to completely bypass the rights of landowners for airport construction.
These specific grassroots allegations read straight out of an investigative thriller. In Gada, to bypass the Lair Act's consent requirements, locals claim public hearings were completely rigged. They allege the company brought in paid outsiders, handing them green cards and white turbans to grant them access, while real landowners were given red cards and blocked by hundreds of police officers. There are even documented claims in district offices that living landowners were recorded as deceased, just so their consent wouldn't be required.
Section 3. Displacing the ground reality, the human cost. We can't just look at the legal loopholes, though. We have to look at the human cost of this unprecedented displacement.
So the crucial point is the sheer mind-boggling scale of who is being affected here. Take the Dharavi redevelopment project, which Adani secured in 2022. We're talking about an estimated 59,000 households and roughly 1 million people facing potential displacement right in the heart of Mumbai.
The political opposition has actually taken to the streets over this, with leaders dubbing the Dharavi project the world's biggest transfer of development rights scam. Why? Well, because the government mandated that competing builders across the city must buy the first 40% of their development rights from Adani's Dharavi project, and at a higher price. Critics argue this is essentially the state forcing the open market to subsidize the conglomerate.
Section 4. Following the money, tracing the state backing. Which brings us to our next phase of investigation. If you want to find the truth behind any massive corporate expansion, you always have to follow the money. And when we trace the financial backing of these projects, the lines between private enterprise and state support get very, very blurry.
And this brilliantly illustrates that massive financial web. Independent researchers like Climate Energy Finance have tracked the Adani family's immense financial exposure across their listed subsidiaries. While the group lost half its value during recent market volatility, their ability to secure capital remains deeply intertwined with state-owned institutions. The government-owned Life Insurance Corporation and State Bank of India have billions of dollars in loan and equity exposure to Adani entities.
Let's break down the numbers for the Gada power plant specifically. State-controlled banks dispersed loans of $1.2 billion to fund it. Furthermore, the Indian government granted the plant a special economic zone status, despite Commerce Ministry rules to the contrary, which saves Adani an estimated $35 million annually in taxes. And the power generated? It's exported to Bangladesh, which currently owes Adani around $900 million under a highly controversial power purchase agreement.
But the foundation of this wealth goes back even further, to the state of Gujarat between 2006 and 2008. The Adani family acquired nearly 16,000 acres of traditional lands in Mundra to build a port and industrial hub. According to financial researchers, they paid literally pennies per square meter, securing the land at a 97 to 99% discount compared to what established firms like Tata Motors and Ford were paying for much smaller blocks of land.
Section 5. The open verdict. You be the judge. We've looked at the timelines, the raids, the grassroots displacement, and the state-backed finances. It's a staggering compilation of data. But in this explainer, the final verdict remains open.
Because we absolutely must hear the defense. The Adani Group categorically rejects all allegations of wrongdoing, coercion, and cronyism. Regarding Gowda, an official spokesperson stated clearly that the company is not involved in any aggression, that they respect local traditions, and that the government acquired the land fully in line with the rules of the LARR Act of 2013, providing unprecedented compensation to the impacted people.
So we're left looking at two completely different realities. Is this the story of a visionary company successfully navigating a tough market through transparent bidding and legal mechanisms? Or is that raid to ownership chronology evidence of a state apparatus weaponized to clear the path for a single conglomerate? Corporate triumph or crony capitalism? You be the judge. But these are the facts, the timelines, and the numbers I've produced.